When she was employed as a necromancer, Gushi found herself encountering a small problem. What is the situation of being thrown into prison with a stick? In order not to become the first useless player to hang up before completing his job, Gushi chose to save himself. As a result, a future powerhouse known as the Breath of the Dead embarked on his legendary journey. Heroes are invincible, farming, building cities, and fighting. The author has absolute guarantees in terms of hero invincibility, unlimited flow, and brain power. Each branch has strong brain power and stable updates. We hope everyone can support us. Group 5517511609 Keywords of the novel. Breath of the Undead with no pop-ups, Breath of the Undead TXT Complete Collection Download, Breath of the Undead Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Employment as a Necromancer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Employment as a Necromancer. Squeak, squeak. With a faint sound coming, Gushi, who was half asleep and half awake, opened his eyes. Pinching the stone in his hand, Gushi looked towards the darkness of the prison, where a thin and weak mouse was poking its head out. In the direction of the mouse's advance, some crushed black bread was being thrown onto the ground. Gently lift your right hand and focus on the mouse's movements. Just as the mouse was running forward, Gushi waved his arm and the stone hit the mouse's head. Kill a mouse, small animal, and gain 0 experience points. Gushi ignored the fleeting information in front of him and grabbed the mouse that had been stoned to death at a speed that ordinary people could not imagine. What sound? Footsteps came from outside the prison, and Gushi pressed the dead mouse against him, leaning against the corner of the wall and pretending to sleep with his eyes closed. 2 men dressed in black robes and hooded hats hurriedly walked past the prison gate. They glanced at Gushi leaning against the corner, and one of them said fiercely, "Kid, it's you again. If you want to die early, just tell me and I'll take you on the road now." Gushi didn't even lift her head, lowered her head, closed her eyes, and pretended not to hear the 2 people shouting outside. At the same time, his hands behind him did not stop moving. The dead mouse was lifted upside down on his left hand, and his right hand made a virtual grab at the dead mouse's position. A small pale light ball was grabbed from the dead mouse's body. You completed the soul drawing ceremony and obtained 0.1 soul fragments. Done. A thought flashed through Gushi's heart, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. As a result, this smile made the 2 men outside even more angry when they saw it. "You're still laughing," you intentionally opened the door. "I don't think I'll kill this guy," a man shouted as he drew his knife and rushed in to find the key to teach Gushi a lesson. The other finally knew the importance and urgency, and when he saw his companion like this, he quickly hugged him. "Forget it, he won't live long anyway. We don't need to have a similar view of this race's offerings." When Gushi heard this, he ignored it. At this time, 9 identical pieces of soul were quickly added to his hands. This is the result of his self-rescue during this period. Gushi is a player from a world that makes a living through gaming. As a recent graduate, he has not yet completed his job, so he can be considered a novice. But his career direction was already set when he was in college, as a necromancer. This game, he came to complete his employment task. As a result, on the first day of entering the gaming world, before even the tasks could be figured out, someone suddenly overturned them from behind and threw them into this lifeless prison where they couldn't see their hands. In this dark place, Gushi didn't know how long she had been locked up. He only knew that every now and then someone would throw in some black bread to ensure that those detained here would not die. No one will take care of the rest. In order to save herself, Gushi came up with many ways. But because he was caught as soon as he arrived in this world, he had no materials in his hands. The only way to survive is to catch a few mice and work hard to piece together fragments of soul. Now that the 10th soul fragment has been obtained, Gushi has no intention of loading it anymore. Holding all the soul fragments in her hand, Gushi took out another scroll from the game backpack. This is his inauguration task. Originally, Gushi should have recruited a powerful undead through soul fragments in the cemetery to serve as his own contracted undead, in order to embark on his path as a necromancer. But now Gushi also has to give up this idea. It doesn't matter whether one is strong or not, as long as one of the undead can be contracted by him. The important thing is that he can work as a necromancer and utilize the various skills of necromancers. Gushi's movements were quite obvious, and the two men outside also noticed. "What are you doing? Hand over what's behind you." They were also a bit anxious, and the one who was blocking their companion didn't care about anything else, quickly searching for the key. But it was already too late. As Gushi activated the scroll in his hand, a cold and gloomy aura crawled onto the two men in the small prison cell. Gushi no longer pretended. He opened his eyes, flipped his hand, and forcefully tore off the scroll. The soul of a little girl who was about 1.3 meters tall, with a bright white light emanating from her whole body, appeared in front of Gushi with a banged pot lid. This little girl has a round face and no eyes in her dark eyes. She held a copper mirror with a diameter of 30 centimeters in her hand. On the back of the mirror were countless rotating gears, and in the center of the gears were eyes of all sizes, constantly blinking. I don't know who the soul and who the essence are even after looking at it. When the little girl moves, she floats about 10 centimeters above the ground. Floating in front of Gushi, the little girl opened her mouth. "Big brother, did you call me out?" The sound was like water droplets on ice, making people feel extremely cold and gloomy. As soon as the sound came out, not only did the two men outside the door freeze, but even Gushi, who summoned the girl, felt hair all over his body. Gushi tried hard to recall the knowledge he had learned in class, lifted his head firmly, and stared at the girl's empty eyes. Before he could speak, the girl opened her mouth again. "Big brother, did you call me out?" The chill in this voice was noticeably stronger. Gushi finally realized and quickly reached out his hand, saying seriously to the girl. "My name is Gushi, and I hope to sign a contract with you to become a necromancer with your help." As Gushi spoke, a light blue light flew up in her hand, which was the synthesized and complete soul. Upon hearing Gushi's words, the little girl's face showed a surprised expression and she spoke with some urgency. "Me? I really I'm willing to be your contract undead." But she immediately reacted, suppressed the joy on her face, and reached out a little on the soul light ball. As soon as Gushi saw it, he quickly pointed his right index finger on it. With this action, Gushi's torn scroll flew up and burned to ashes in front of them. Ding! The contract for undead has been successful, and player 629SHD2S0FXC30 has officially taken on the position of undead mage. With this prompt sound, all the functions that have been locked and cannot be opened are turned on to Gushi. Name: Gushi, Game ID 629SHD2S0FXC30. Occupation: Undead Mage. Level: Level 1, 0/1000, Talent. Unactivated status: Health, 105/310, Hunger, Weakness, Mana, 220/450, Insomnia, Mental Disorder, Attributes. Strength 3.2, Agility 3.3, Physical Fitness 3.1, Intelligence 4.5, Perception 3.7, Charm 3.6. Professional Skill. Summoning Skill Level 1, 0/100, consumes 1 mana, 1 unit soul and 1 corpse, has a 25% chance to summon a undead to fight for you. Level 0, undead type is Skull, can grow, no limit on quantity. Secondary Corpse Explosion. Level 1, 0/100, consumes 5 mana, can use 1 corpse for corpse explosion, and the power of corpse explosion is 50% of the corpse's vitality. Secondary Bone Shield. Level 1, 0/100, consumes 5 mana, 1 soul and 1 corpse, releases 3-sided bone shields for automatic defense, and the bone shield's vitality is 25% of the corpse's vitality. Active skill. Throw. Level 2, 18/200, passive skills. Undead Knowledge Level 3, Undead Contract Level 1, Magic Knowledge Level 4, Basic Science Level 3, Basic Reading Level 2, and Basic Copying Level 2, Name. Luna, Contract Undead, Race. Ghost Level. Level 1, 0/1000, Talent. Mirror Movement Status. Health, 110/110, Mana, 150/150, Attributes. Strength 1.2, Agility 1.3, Physical Fitness 1.1, Intelligence 1.5, Perception 1.7, Charm 1.6 Skills. Ice Touch Level 1, Female Demon Whale Level 1, Alert Level 1, Player 629 SHD2S0FXC30 has completed the employment task. May I ask if you want to exit the game now? If you don't, you can leave at any time in a safe area. New book upload, seeking various tickets and follow-up reading, thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Anti-Killing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Anti-Killing, Quit Your Sister, Don't Quit. Seeing the last sentence, Gushi couldn't help but roar. Making the simple job assignment look like it is now, and putting him through so much hardship, he has contracted the worst undead. I want to drive him away now. That is impossible. If he doesn't calm down all the people who caught him, this matter won't be over. Gushi roared and threw the dead mouse at the two people outside the door who had not yet reacted. Level 2 throwing accurately throws dead mice onto one of the faces. The person who was hit by Gushi suddenly regained consciousness. His gaze towards Gushi was filled with killing intent, but just as he was about to draw his sword, he heard Gushi say something in a low voice. Explosion. The dead mouse that hit him in the face exploded on the spot, with the power of a large firecracker, the kind that can explode a pot into the sky. The killing power could only be considered average, but it happened to explode in front of the person's face. The shock wave of the explosion carried the bones of the dead mouse into his eyes and pierced his head. Kill the cultist, level 1, and gain 10 points of experience. The other person on the side quickly pulled out a dagger from their waist when they saw this situation. At this moment, his movements noticeably slowed down, as if his joints were frozen. Later, Gushi looked behind the person in surprise, and Luna, who was originally standing in front of him, appeared in the position behind the person. Two bright blue tentacles stretched out from the mirror that Luna was holding in her arms and touched the person's back. White frost was slowly crawling over the person's entire body along the area where the tentacles touched. Then Luna gently opened her mouth to the person's ear. The guy who still wanted to draw a dagger collapsed directly. At the moment he fell, Gushi could see that the face behind his hood was covered in blood flowing from his 7 orifices. Luna, Contract Undead, kills the cultist, level 1, you gain 4 experience points, and Contract Undead gains 7 experience points. This situation surprised Gushi a bit, as he didn't initially have any interest in Luna's combat prowess. If there was no other way, Gushi wouldn't have thought of reaching a contract with such a weak ghost. You should know that for every 2 levels of improvement in the level of the Undead Mage or 1 level of improvement in the Undead Contract skill, you can sign an additional Undead Contract. As a reward contract, the level of Undead Mages can normally exceed the level of Undead Mages by 5 levels. At first, Gushi's plan was to choose a level 5 vampire or necromancer as his first contracted undead, so that when summoning ordinary undead to serve as cannon fodder, he also had helpers to command. Even in danger, there are people who can discuss or help themselves. Luna's attributes are much worse than Gushi's. Gushi even thought that her first contract with the undead had been invalidated. Now it seems that's not the case. Luna still has some combat power, at least she will take the initiative to attack, that's enough. As Gushi thought, she quickly ran to the prison door. Without waiting for Gushi's command, Luna found the key from the 2 specific corpses and threw it into Gushi's hand. Holding the cold key in her hand, the last hint of dissatisfaction dissipated when Gu Shi contracted with Luna. If you have a contract, then use it well. As contracted undead mages, they are different from the summoned undead. The undead of the contract hardly needs much command, and cooperation will only become more and more tacit. Then help Luna find a way to upgrade and make up for the missing levels. Thinking of this, Gu Shi had already accepted Luna in her heart and regarded her as her companion. Opening the prison door with the key, Luna handed over a dagger and a machete. It was obvious that when Gu Shi opened the door, Luna had already searched for the body. Divide the keys. Gu Shi took the curved knife and dagger, hung them around his waist, and threw a string of keys to Luna. Luna took the key and flew towards the nearby prison, throwing the keys one by one in front of the imprisoned person. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gu Shi also reached out to grab the two corpses and quickly flew out two pale light balls from them. You complete the soul drawing ceremony and receive soul fragments *1.4. Gu Shi did not immediately synthesize the soul fragments into a complete soul. He just collected these soul fragments, held a curved knife in his hand, and ran towards the depths of the corridor outside the prison. At this point, Luna had already taken out all the keys. As Gu Shi got up and ran away, she quickly dodged and followed him. Gu Shi didn't look back, he just felt a chill behind him and knew that Luna had followed. Gu Shi, who discovered this, accelerated his pace again. Although he didn't know why those cultists would arrest him, Gu Shi knew that this place was not safe. He doesn't want to die here right after taking office. Let's escape from here first. Before taking a few steps, Gu Shi heard the sound of hurried footsteps coming from ahead. It seems that the explosion that occurred at the prison just now still caught the attention of the cultists. In the prison below, what is being held are all the sacrifices they have brought back. If something happens and one or two of the sacrifices are missing, they may also be sent to the altar. In order to survive, these cultists are still working hard. As she watched the figure rushing out in front of her, Gu Shi's left hand shrank back and the dagger fell into her hand. At this moment, the cultist across from him also noticed Gu Shi, and one of them shouted loudly. "The sacrifice has come out, the sacrifice has come out." Before he could finish speaking, Gu Shi's dagger pierced his forehead. Kill the cultist, level 1, and gain 12 points of experience. Seeing that Gu Shi had taken the initiative, the nearby cult disciples were also angry. They stepped over their companions' corpses and charged towards Gu Shi with weapons in their hands. However, the cooperation between Gu Shi and Luna exceeded the imagination of the cult disciples. As soon as Gu Shi threw his dagger, Luna came to Gu Shi's face, and the tentacles wrapped from the mirror touched the ground, instantly revealing a layer of frost on the ground. And Gu Shi also took this opportunity to point at the corpse on the ground. Explosion. The secondary corpse explosion skill was activated again, and the just fallen cult corpse exploded on the spot. Compared to the dead mice that Gu Shi had thrown out before, which were as powerful as firecrackers, the power caused by the explosion of the cult corpse in front of him was significantly greater. When the corpse explodes, its power is equivalent to the power of a serious landmine. In a relatively narrow location like the corridor, coupled with other cultists all squeezing together and running over this corpse, this explosion instantly blew them all up to the sky. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Luna opened her mouth to the place where the cult had been bombed, and a wave that normal people couldn't see spread outwards around Luna. The cultists who happened to be within the range of the secondary corpse explosion were already severely injured. Luna's wave of female demons howled and took the last life of the cultists on the spot. A series of messages kept jumping in front of Gu Shi, telling her about the gains this time. Kill the cultist, level 1, and gain 9 points of experience. Luna, contract undead, kills the cultist, level 1, you gain 6 experience points, and contract undead gains 8 experience points. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Power of the Undead Mage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 The power of the undead mage. Kill this group of cultists, and Gu Shi and Luna moved together quite tacitly. Gu Shi's soul was drawn, Luna touched the corpses, and dealing with these corpses was a quick move. The only regret is that the cultists are all poor ghosts with nothing good in their hands. The weapons they turn out do not have attributes, and some are so poor that they don't even have a dagger. This situation made Gu Shi somewhat suspicious, as she had been pacified by such a poor person. What did he do in the beginning to be let down by such a thug? At this moment, Gu Shi's arm cooled slightly. He turned his head and saw Luna appearing beside him, gently patting his arm. His hollow eyes were paying attention to Gu Shi's face. Don't think too much, you're not alone now. Gu Shi's face twitched slightly. Is this comforted by the spirits of his subordinates? Is his performance so obvious? Gu Shi shook her head without much thought, but quickly walked up to the body that had just been treated. As Gu Shi walked past these corpses, his fingers kept popping outwards. Every time it pops up, a beam of light falls onto a complete or incomplete corpse. Soul summoning technique. Secondary bone shield. Soul summoning technique. With Gu Shi's movements, corresponding prompt sounds kept ringing in his ear. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. Skull, level 0, summoned object. Experience, 0 out of 100, attack 1, defense 1, HP 10, skill none. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. You have failed to use the soul summoning technique and have gained 1 point of soul summoning experience. You have successfully used the secondary bone shield, with 1 experience point for the secondary bone shield. At the same time, the corpses on the ground also exploded one after another, some turning into withered yellow skeletons standing behind Gu Shi, while others turned into gray-white air masses hovering around Gu Shi and Luna. Alright, let's go. After handling all the corpses, Gu Shi finally greeted Luna. At this moment, Luna happened to have distributed weapons to the newly transformed skeleton. All the weapons they used were the things Luna just picked up, all of which were cut machetes or simply iron rods and wooden staff. Although these weapons are not very good, given the current situation, giving them a weapon would be considered good. Upon hearing Gu Shi's command, Luna didn't need any control. The 3 transformed skeletons charged forward with weapons in hand. Their footsteps are light and decisive, their goals are clear, and they are not like the undead without wisdom, always moving aimlessly when walking. They always move forward with aggressiveness, and when they see something that can be broken, they always come forward and strike it. They even had to step forward and kick away the rice dishes and water cans on the roadside. Gu Shi followed behind with a curved knife in one hand and a dagger in the other. Seeing this situation, she couldn't help but wonder why these skeletons were different from what was said in the book. Luna, who was following Gu Shi, didn't know everything about it. She was like an elf, floating around Gu Shi, appearing in front of him from time to time, and then disappearing directly. But no matter where she is, Gu Shi can always feel Luna's presence very clearly. This has calmed Gu Shi's mind a lot, perhaps this is the meaning of the existence of contractual partners. Just then, a hurried sound suddenly came from afar. It's a skeleton, with a necromancer. After speaking, another group of cultists rushed out from a distance. They are no different from the cultists who were killed by Gu Shi before, they are all covered in black hooded robes and holding weapons that can be easily lifted in their hands. Gu Shi even saw someone charging forward with a candlestick and bench. Watching them charging wildly, Gu Shi felt like she was facing a group of lunatics. Howl! Gu Shi shouted loudly as she began to charge forward. Luna understood Gu Shi's command tacitly and immediately appeared in front of her, screaming at the rushing cultists. The female demon howled and launched. The screams, accompanied by waves, rushed towards the cultists, and in the midst of the waves, all the cultists simultaneously shed blood from their 7 orifices. At this moment, Gu Shi had already taken advantage of the opportunity to charge out more than 20 meters, throwing a dagger in his hand and hitting the foremost cultist. Then Gu Shi pointed at the cultist who had been stabbed by a dagger. Secondary corpse explosion. Boom. The bodies of the cultists exploded on the spot, and the power of the explosion spread to several cultists behind them, killing the cultists who were severely injured under the howling of the female demon on the spot. Kill the cultist, level 1, and gain 9 points of experience. Luna, contract undead, kills the cultist, level 1, you gain 6 experience points, while contract undead gains 8 experience points. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 22 points of experience, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 11 points of experience. The moves are not afraid of aging, as long as they are easy to use. Watching the effects of this wave of attacks, Gu Shi muttered happily and pointed to a corpse that had been killed in the explosion before striking again. Secondary corpse explosion. A cultist who had just woken up from the explosion was killed by another body explosion before he could react. The 2 invisible thieves who were blown up together are still behind. Kill the elite thief, level 2, and gain 35 experience points. Kill the thief, level 2, and gain 28 experience points. Glancing at the iron rod that fell from the thief's hand to the ground, Gu Shi didn't know why, but his displeasure dissipated quite a bit. Before Gu Shi could think much, the 3 skeletons had already rushed to the side of the body. Without waiting for Gu Shi's command, the 3 skeletons picked up the weapons on the ground and replaced them with updated weapons. At the same time, the old weapon was not thrown away, but was held in hand waiting for Gu Shi's arrival. Gu Shi rushed forward and reached out from a distance to grab the position where he had just fought. A large number of soul fragments flew out of the exploded corpse and formed 5 new soul light clusters in Gu Shi's hands. At this moment, Gu Shi had just run to the side of these corpses. He glanced at the situation of the corpses and then popped out 2 soul light clusters, landing among the 2 relatively intact corpses. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. You have failed to use the soul summoning technique and have gained 1 point of soul summoning experience. Failed again, it seems that the success rate of soul summoning is not high. Gu Shi's heart twitched slightly as he was about to make the first 3 skeletons step back and distribute an extra weapon to his newly joined companions when he heard the sound of weapon combat coming from the corner of the front corridor. It seems that there are enemies again. Gu Shi turned his head to look at Luna, but he didn't need Gu Shi's command. Luna had already rushed out ahead of time, and after a few flashes, the flashing person was almost at the turning point. Gu Shi took out the dagger and prepared the secondary corpse explosion with his right hand. As he said, moves are not afraid of aging, as long as they are easy to use. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Underground Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Underground Space. Just as she turned the corner, Gu Shi raised her dagger and was about to throw it out. But at this moment, Gu Shi paused. When he rushed over, he thought the skeletons had encountered resistance from the cultists and wanted to rush over to save the scene. But he never expected that the situation before him would be like this. At the corner of the corridor, there is a considerable underground space directly. The entire space is the size of 7 or 8 football fields. Looking up, one cannot even see the ceiling, only the vines hanging from above. At the other end of the underground space, there is a huge abandoned stone gate, and a group of black-robed cult disciples stand around it like statues. Even if there is a battle here, they do not have much reaction. In the dark underground space, they looked as if they were terracotta warriors in order. Whoever sees such a scene in the dark will only feel hair all over their body. The most important thing is not that. Gu Shi could clearly hear the breathing of these black-robed cultists. but they didn't even turn their heads, all facing the abandoned stone gate motionless, like statues. Even when skeletons appear with weapons, they have no reaction unless the weapons strike them, and they will only pull out their weapons to counterattack. For this reason, all 4 skeletons under Gu Shi's command have already been advanced. This situation left Gu Shi stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. This is a good thing, isn't it, that you wake up only after being beaten, so none of you can wake up. Gu Shi wielded a curved sword and chopped towards a black-robed cultist beside him. When Gu Shi cut down with a single blow, he felt like he had hit a broken piece of wood, and it didn't seem like he had hit a person. Luna also flashed behind the black-robed cultist, and a faint blue tentacle popped out of the copper mirror she was holding in her arms, tapping on the back of the black-robed cultist. The black-robed cultist, who had been slashed by Gu Shi, was about to draw out his weapon to counterattack. However, when Luna did so, his whole body was quickly covered in frost, losing normal momentum. Gu Shi made another backhand blow and immediately cut off the head of the black-robed cultist. With a ding sound, a message popped up in front of Gu Shi. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 19 experience points, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 16 experience points. Glancing at the information, Gu Shi's eyes immediately lit up. Looking at so many motionless black-robed cultists here, Gu Shi felt too happy. This is truly a disaster that never dies, there must be future blessings. He just escaped and encountered such a treasure trove of experience to brush. He doesn't brush special skills much now, and if he raises his level, how long will it take? Luna. Luna immediately understood Gu Shi's meaning, and there was no need for Gu Shi to give any further orders. As the ice touch moved forward, the nearby black-robed evil cultist was pointed. And Gu Shi also took a curved knife and cut it towards the neck of this evil believer. This cultist's luck was even worse. He didn't even have a chance to come back to life, so he died by Gu Shi's sword. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 17 experience points, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 13 experience points. As soon as the 2 cultists died, Gu Shi knew that this had happened. He quickly took Luna and turned his focus to other black-robed cultists nearby. Just as Gu Shi and Luna were preparing for a major killing, another group of black-robed people emerged from the nearby passage. They were divided into 4 groups of 12, with 2 black-robed cultists carrying a motionless black-robed man. The passage where these black-robed people appeared was relatively close to the passage where Gu Shi came out. As soon as they entered this underground space, they saw Gu Shi who was about to kill someone. What person? There's a pagan invasion. As soon as they saw Gu Shi, they shouted loudly and drew out their weapons to rush over. The black-robed man they carried was thrown to the ground on the spot, unable to move for a moment. And when they called out, Gu Shi noticed that the black-robed cultists nearby had started turning their heads to look at him. Step back. Gu Shi made a decision at the first moment. He bent down and dragged up the body of a black-robed cultist, then retreated to the position where he had come out. Luna followed closely and floated in front of Gu Shi, holding a bronze mirror. Several skeletons that had already been killed far away also received Gu Shi's order, abandoned the enemy they were facing, and rushed towards Gu Shi and his side with weapons in hand. But these skeletons were quickly surrounded by the active black-robed cultists, and in 3 or 2 strikes, all 4 skeletons were smashed to pieces. After killing the skeleton, more and more black-robed cultists turned their gaze to Gu Shi's side. At this moment, Gu Shi tightly grasped the curved sword in one hand and stared at the movements of these black-robed cultists. There is too much quantity. If they are still as motionless as before, Gu Shi can take some time to turn them into experience. We must run away now. Gu Shi gave Luna a glance, and Luna opened her mouth and took a breath at the black-robed cultist rushing outside. Ah! The female demon howled and launched. More than 10 black-robed cultists rushed over and squatted on the ground holding their heads. At this moment, Gu Shi stood up and kicked the body that had just been dragged over to the side of these cultists. Secondary corpse explosion. Boom. The power of the corpse explosion instantly killed 6 black-robed cultists. Killing evil cultists, level 1, earns 9 points of experience, and due to cooperative killing, contract undead earns 6 points of experience. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 8 experience points, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 19 experience points. Killing evil cultists, level 2, earns 11 points of experience, and due to cooperative killing, contract undead earns 10 points of experience. However, immediately after the corpse explosion, new black-robed cultists rushed over. They stepped on the bodies of their comrades who had been killed in the explosion and rushed towards Gu Shi with weapons in hand. Gu Shi was still thinking of slowing down, but there was no time for slowing down. He pointed to the corpse on the ground and launched a secondary corpse explosion again. At the same time as the corpse erupted, Luna also launched the female demon's howl once again. 2 types of magic exploded simultaneously, once again killing a group of black-robed cultists. Killing evil cultists, level 2, earns 13 points of experience, and due to cooperative killing, contract undead earns 5 points of experience. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 16 points of experience, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 11 points of experience. Killing the evil cultist, level 1, earns 4 points of experience, and due to combined killing, contracted undead earns 3 points of experience. But at this moment, all the black-robed cultists in the underground space came to life. They were like walking corpses, pushing towards Gu Shi's side. The explosion of the corpse explosion here has just ended, and more than 20 black-robed cultists have crowded into the location where it was blown out. Gu Shi glanced at her own magic. Luna, let's have 5 more corpse explosions. You can put a cold touch and freeze this place. Luna nodded and quickly prepared for the witch's howling. Just as Gu Shi was about to point at a corpse under the feet of a black-robed cult disciple, a voice came from behind Gu Shi. Bow your head. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The people who escaped, seeking follow-up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The people who escaped, seeking follow-up. Although Gu Shi didn't know what was happening behind him, he quickly lowered his head and then let out a loud bang from behind. A huge stone, like a pendulum, struck heavily among the black-robed cultists. The huge stone was estimated to have weighed several tons in the past, and I don't know how it was thrown up. The black-robed cultist who rushed to the front was hit on the spot, and more than 10 people were directly killed in place. And at this moment, another voice came from behind Gu Shi. This way, come here. Gu Shi looked up and saw a young man, who was unusually thin, poking his head out of the vicinity and waving at him incessantly. Gu Shi was curious, but just as he hesitated, the sound of the black-robed evil cultist moving the boulder came from behind. Gu Shi didn't think much and immediately ran towards the young man. After only taking 2 steps, Gu Shi noticed that the young man was actually hiding in a passage behind the wall. If it weren't for him personally waving, Gu Shi wouldn't have noticed the existence of this passage. Without much thought, Gu Shi quickly leaned over, and the young man grabbed her hand and dragged her into the passage. When dragged away, Gu Shi noticed that the young man's arm was already thin and only skin and bones were left, and there were even a few tooth marks on his arm. The young man didn't have much reaction, as he led the way in front and pressed the mechanism on the wall. Although he didn't look back, Gu Shi could hear that the wall behind him seemed to have moved. Gu Shi, who was not quite sure what was going on, could only raise his mind and secretly communicate with Luna. If the young man behaves recklessly, give him a hard blow. They ran forward for more than 30 meters, took a few turns, and then came to a small room of 7 or 8 square meters. As soon as Gu Shi entered the small room, he noticed 4 or 5 men and women still sitting there. They all looked relatively thin and sat weakly when Gu Shi and the others entered. However, Gu Shi could see anger and killing intent from their eyes. Upon closer inspection of their sitting posture, Gu Shi couldn't help but let out a sigh. You guys are not. Yes, we're right next to your cell. My name is Jack, Little Flea Jack. When you escaped, you threw the key to us. The young man who brought Gu Shi over explained to him when he noticed the situation here. So it's you guys, just escape, but why didn't you escape? Seeing the same difficult friend who was inexplicably caught by someone, Gu Shi also let go of half of his heart, but he still looked at these people with some surprise. Judging from the situation of entering all the way just now, the small room in front of them was not dug out by them. If they really had such organizational skills, they wouldn't have had to wait for Gu Shi to take action. They had escaped hundreds of years ago. Oh, those who wanted to leave have already escaped. We stayed because we knew some secrets. I said, Sir, are you a professional? Jack looked mysteriously at Gu Shi. Yes, necromancer. When Gu Shi said these words, Luna also poked her face out from behind Gu Shi. The empty gaze startled so many people present. Fortunately, Jack reacted quickly and quickly said, Sir, please don't, we have no intention of targeting you. These few were all left by me, and we know a secret here. That's also why those people brought us here. Upon hearing these words, Gu Shi's eyes froze. He had been locked up here for so long that he almost couldn't complete his inauguration. He had always remembered this. After successfully taking office, he did not leave immediately in order to find an opportunity for revenge. I can't believe that I can hear such news right now, which makes Gu Shi excited. What is the reason? Those guys discovered the Mirror Underground Palace, and we used it as a sacrifice to open the Mirror Gate. As Jack spoke, he proudly looked at Gu Shi, hoping to see the shocked expression in her eyes. But Gu Shi really doesn't know anything about mirror dungeons or the like. He came to this world only to work as a necromancer. Based on his past experience, he only needs to find a suitable undead in the cemetery to choose as his contracted undead, even if he is successfully employed. He can leave this world directly then. Who would read the various background information of this world carefully? Everything Jack said was just showing the blind eye, and Gu Shi had no idea the importance of the information in Jack's words. Seeing that Gu Shi had no response, Jack thought Gu Shi didn't take notice of the news and had to explain it further. Sir, it's like this. When I was first locked in, there was an architect next door to me. When he was locked here, he didn't give up and wanted to escape. I was still planning to dig a tunnel, and at that time I even helped him, but his movements were too aggressive and he was soon severely injured by those people. If it weren't for me occasionally giving him some water, he might have died faster. Later, he told me that while digging the tunnel, he found some different bricks. Based on his judgment, this should be the legendary Mirror Underground Palace. When it comes to Mirror Underground, Jack deliberately emphasized his words. But Gu Shi really didn't understand these things, so he said directly, Is there anything wrong with the Mirror Underground Palace? Upon hearing this, Jack realized that there were some things that couldn't be explained. Gu Shi really doesn't know. So Jack and the others explained to Gu Shi about the Mirror Underground Palace. Originally, this mirrored underground palace is a legend from Victoria City. About 300 years ago, Victoria was still part of the Stuart dynasty, and James I offered the entire city of Victoria as a sacrifice to an unknown presence in order to obtain the throne. However, after he ascended the throne, he was unwilling to offer Victoria City, so he came up with a solution. He took the Victoria Tower, the core of Victoria City, as the starting point, and copied an identical Victoria City with a size of 1.2.1. Afterwards, he dedicated the fake city to an unknown existence and, using the method of mirroring, exiled that existence along with the fake city to a different space. Afterwards, this fake city became the backdrop for the legend of the Victoria City ghost story. Among various true and false legends, the only thing that can be confirmed is that the only way to enter the exiled castle is through a building that is completely opposite to the Victoria Tower. The mirror underground palace that has never been discovered. And those black-robed cultists are the followers of the unknown big shot. They have only one target for Gu Shi and others, opening the channel from the mirror underground palace to the fake city and releasing the big shot they believe in. Open a book and upload 10,000 words, seeking a follow-up and recommendation. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Divergence and Exploration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Divergence and Exploration. When talking about the big shots behind the mirror underground, Gu Shi noticed that, including Jack, their eyes were shining with excitement. Although that big shot was deceived, he really has the ability. James I was the first person to ascend from the position of King of Edinburgh to the position of Emperor of Britain. At first, he had such high demands, and all he paid was a city as a sacrifice. If they demand a lower price, can they also pay a lower price? It can be said that the people of Victoria hear the expression on their faces when they have a chance to find the mirror underground palace, just like the expression on their faces when Arabs hear that they have a chance to get the wishing lamp. It can be said that everyone cannot control their ambitions. The same goes for the people in front of me. They gave up the opportunity to escape for such a vague dream. Joined the team searching for the mirror underground palace with Jack. Just Gu Shi is not sure how many of them will eventually survive. Jack didn't know Gu Shi's thoughts, but after introducing Mirror Underground, he resumed the initial topic. Master, I have obtained precise information from that architect. In the mirrored underground palace opposite Victoria Tower, there are a total of 6 doors. Legend has it that as long as all 6 doors are opened at the same time, the exiled city will return. To open these doors, one needs to perform a blood sacrifice. According to the situation of each door, the blood sacrifice requires the heads of a British emperor and a British queen, the blood of a British princess and a British crown prince, and the lives of a British royal brother and a British royal husband. Each blood sacrifice on the other side of the door requires compensation for the lives and blood of 1,000 to 500 ordinary people. These ordinary people also have certain requirements. We belong to the wave that died with us. Gu Shi's eyelids twitched as he knew why he had been brought over. Using me as a companion sacrifice, they can really think that I can't bear this anger. Listening to Gu Shi's words, several people nearby must have nodded their heads. They were all caught like this, and no one wanted to be taken as a sacrifice or die. Don't say that Gu Shi's anger can't continue, it's just a person who can't even handle it. Thinking of this, Gu Shi said fiercely, this matter is not over. Don't you want to open the door? I won't let him open it. You give me the map, and I'll find a way to destroy this door. No way. After Gu Shi finished speaking, everyone, including Jack, shouted. Gu Shi looked at them with a puzzled expression, realizing that they all had some awkwardness in their eyes. At this moment, Jack explained to Gu Shi again, Master, I don't want to stop you from destroying the gate, but instead, this gate is not meant to be built in the mirror underground palace, but rather released by the big shots from Victoria's fake city. Even if you destroy it, you will still produce a new one. The cult disciples can still offer blood sacrifices, but another group of innocent passers-by will die. Master, you wouldn't have thought that some innocent passers-by would die because of you, innocent passers-by, it's just innocent passers-by. If you consider them, I will also consider myself. If you don't destroy a door, I can't calm this anger. At this moment, a woman sitting in the corner stood up. When she got up, she didn't forget to pull her hair behind her ear. As she approached Gu Shi, the woman whispered, Master, we understand your feelings. We also want to retaliate against those cultists, but we must find the right target, right? Shouldn't we target those cultists? Gu Shi glanced at everyone present and then laughed disdainfully. Looking at the expressions of agreement on their faces, Gu Shi understood their thoughts. These people may seem to have come to seek revenge against the cultists on the surface, but in fact, they also want to benefit from the exiled bigwigs. Greed is written on their faces. Such people are not worth being companions. Their minds are not as clear as those civilians who are released and run away. She shook her head and said, "Whatever you do, I will have my own plan and direction of action. Don't disrupt my actions then. Also, I need to rest now. It's best for you to be quiet." "Master, you can't say that. We are currently on the same boat." Before the woman could finish speaking, Luna approached her, her empty eyes fixed on hers, making her unable to speak. When speaking, the best thing to think about is whether you have the ability to handle things. If not, then honestly shut your mouth. Shi's words made everyone present tremble with fear. However, Shi did not make things difficult for them. After all, they finally brought some useful news to themselves. And they are still considered comrades in arms now. So after scaring these people, Shi found a place to sit down, closed her eyes, and began to restore the consumed mana. As soon as Shi's eyes closed, Luna retreated to Shi's side. She didn't even look at the other people, but it was Luna's presence that made everyone here afraid to take a breath. But as time passed by, these people began to think carefully again. They watched as Shi was clearly asleep. Two thin and frail middle-aged people exchanged a glance at each other. One stood up and slowly leaned towards Shi, while the other sat on the ground moving. They planned to attract Luna's attention while the other secretly approached Shi. In their minds, mages are all melee warriors. As long as they catch Shi, they can control the situation. They are not just novice mages, and they have seen each other before. Their idea is actually correct. After being locked up for such a long time, the ruthless civilians cannot survive. But they never expected that as a ghost, Luna was born with vigilance skills. Her body had no substance at all, and when the enemy had already circled behind her, it was actually facing her head on. She will never be attacked from behind. At the moment when the middle-aged man who wanted to sneak closer to Shi stood up and prepared to pounce, a cold tentacle hit him. Then the middle-aged man's body quickly froze and fell heavily on the floor. Luna, Contract Undead, kills a commoner, level 0, you gain 2 points of experience, while Contract Undead gains 4 points of experience. At this moment, Shi also opened his eyes and glanced at the pop-up message in front of him, sighing helplessly. "Why are you doing this? Isn't it good to live well?" Watching Shi stand up, Jack quickly said. "Master, don't be angry. They don't have any bad intentions." "Yes, Master, we really don't know anything. Yes, I also fell asleep just now." The other few quickly spoke up, as if they wanted to clear everything up. Shi glanced at them and reached out to grab at the dead middle-aged man, and a few glimpses of light fell into his hands. Then Shi flipped his hand, and these dots of light turned into a larger ball of light and fell back into the body of the middle-aged man. In a burst of crackling sounds, the middle-aged man transformed into a skeleton that had nothing to hold. Pointing at the skeleton standing beside him, Shi said calmly. "Don't think I need you, now it's you who need my help, so if you don't want to die, be honest with me, otherwise I'll turn all of you into skeleton soldiers." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Battle Again, Seeking Support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Battle Again, Seeking Support, Name. Shi, Game ID 629SHD2S0FXC30 Occupation. Undead Mage Level. Level 1, 317/1000, Talent. Unactivated Status. Life, 165/310, Hunger, Mana, 450/450, Vigorous, Attributes. Strength 3.2, Agility 3.3, Physical Fitness 3.1, Intelligence 4.5, Perception 3.7, Charm 3.6 Professional Skills. Soul Summoning Level 1, 7 out of 100, Secondary Corpse Blast Level 1, 5 out of 100, Secondary Bone Shield Level 1, 2 out of 100, Active Skill. Throw Level 2, 22/200, Passive Skills. Undead Knowledge Level 3, Undead Contract Level 1, Magic Knowledge Level 4, Basic Science Level 3, Basic Reading Level 2, and Basic Copying Level 2. After sleeping for over an hour again, Gu Shi, who woke up and opened his eyes, immediately looked around at the situation. The people who escaped from the prison were all crowded together, staring at the skeleton in front of them with a gloomy face, but not daring to move. Even though the bones of this skeleton are slightly thinner than theirs, and it is impossible for a skeleton to stare at all of them, they dare not make any small movements. Gu Shi disdains the reactions of these people. If they dare to move their hand again when Gu Shi falls asleep for the second time, Gu Shi will still admire their courage. Now they are just a group of ordinary people who want to get benefits but are too timid. Gu Shi shook her head and stood up. Alright, I don't know what you're up to there. Let's all get up. I want to have the idea of taking action against you. You've become skeletons long ago. These few people then carefully looked at Gu Shi. As soon as they looked up, they saw Luna staring at them with hollow eyes behind Gu Shi. The cold air in those eyes scared these people back on the spot. Gu Shibai glanced at them and said to Jack, "Where's the map?" Jack finally wanted to struggle again. "Master, we need to." "Stop, I know you have your thoughts, but I also have my thoughts. Either you lead the way now, or I turn you into a skeleton and let the skeleton lead the way in front." Jack immediately closed his mouth upon hearing this and honestly led the way ahead. The several people in the room looked at each other and saw their own unwillingness in their eyes. After hesitating for a moment, they finally followed along honestly. Following Jack, Gu Shi and the others quickly arrived at the beginning of entering the secret passage. They had not yet opened the mechanism leading to the external corridor when they heard the sound of knocking on the wall outside. Gu Shi gestured and Luna walked through the wall to reach the ceiling of the corridor. In the hallway outside, about 30 black-robed cultists were tapping on the wall with their belongings, seemingly searching for an undiscovered secret mechanism passage. Behind these black-robed cultists, an obvious leader like cult disciple was speaking loudly. "Please be careful with me. I have carefully searched every inch of the wall here. I don't care what methods you use, you must retrieve all the ethnic sacrifices that you have escaped from me. Why don't you take off your clothes and walk to the altar during the ceremony?" Luna glanced at them and headed towards the underground space not far away. The traces left by Gu Shi's previous battle with the black-robed cultists have not been cleared. Although the living black-robed cultists stood back in front of the abandoned gate, the number of people was significantly reduced. At the same time, at other entrances in the underground space, there were also black-robed cultists dragging newcomers over and standing in front of the abandoned gate, seemingly filling in the number of black-robed cultists in front of the abandoned gate. When Luna went out, Gu Shi was not idle either. He handed the curved knife he had with him to the hand of the skeleton beside him, while carefully polishing the dagger in his hand. "Every time I polish it, I also look up at Jack, which scares him a lot." At this moment, Luna came back through the wall again, her empty eyes scanning Jack. Jack opened his mouth and wanted to scream. Gu Shi quickly stepped forward and covered Jack's mouth. "We're looking outside, do you want to die?" Seeing Jack calm down, Gu Shi turned to look at Luna. "How is the situation outside?" "There are only over 30 people in the corridor, not strong." "That's the old trick." Gu Shi waved the dagger in his hand and forcefully opened the mechanism of the secret passage door. A black-robed cultist who was tapping on the wall had not yet realized when a dagger pierced his brain. "Kill the cultist, level 1, and gain 12 points of experience." Then the skull rushed forward and its curved sword slashed towards another black-robed cultist nearby. The black-robed cult disciples who were knocking on the wall were all stunned. They didn't expect Gu Shihue to launch an attack as soon as he appeared. They didn't react for a moment and were actually chopped down by this skeleton. Skull, summon, kills evil cultists, level 1, you gain 1 experience point, and summon gains 6 experience points. At this moment, the enemy only reacted and the leader shouted loudly, "Shield hands around, be careful of the enemy's corpse explosion. Gu Shi had already known the location of the black-robed cult leader under Luna's description. When the skeleton killed him, Gu Shi had already advanced 7 or 8 steps forward. As the distance approached, Gu Shi threw her hand and opened her bow with both hands. 3 daggers flew towards the leader of the black-robed evil cult at the same time. The leader of the cult did not expect that Gu Shi would dare to attack him first in such a situation. He did not even consider his own defense issues until a white light flashed in front of him before he realized it. At this moment, the leader of the cult quickly flashed towards the back under the white light, but everything was still too late. Gu Shi threw 3 flying knives for this purpose. The first blow flew in front of the leader of the cult, activating his own defense item. The second sword led the leader of the cult to dodge in a certain direction, and this third sword is the key. When the leader of the cult dodged, the flying knife was already in place and happened to pierce the leader's neck. Kill the leader of the cult, level 2, elite, and gain 42 experience points. You complete 3 combos and successfully kill the enemy, gaining 40 throwing experience points. As soon as the leader of the cult died, all the black-robed cultists became chaotic. They all rushed towards the leader of the cult, hoping to see what was happening. Seeing them gathered together, Gu Shi was about to give them a corpse explosion, but when she was finally ready to take action, she hesitated for a moment, and her spell changed from a corpse explosion to a soul summoning spell. In the next moment, the corpse of the cult leader exploded on the spot, and as it scattered in the blood, a stronger skeleton stood up. With a backhand, the skull pulled out the dagger from its neck, and with a backhand, it plunged the dagger into the head of a running cultist. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull head, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. Skull head, level 0, summoned. Experience, 0/500, attack 2, defense 1, HP 15, skill combat elite, team commander, 30 people, Skull head, summon, kills evil cultists, level 1, you gain 1 experience point, summon gains 4 experience points. New book upload, seeking various recommendations, monthly passes, and support. Please help me a lot, brothers. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Combat Team, Seeking Support. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Combat Team, Seeking Support. When the skeleton witnessed the killing of the cultist, Gu Shi's movements were not slow at all. With a single turn, the soul of the cultist who had just been killed was drawn out. Soul Summoning Technique. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. Found a leader of the same race. May I ask if we need to form a formation? Formation. As the cultist transformed into a new skeleton, another message popped up in front of Gu Shi. As a result, Gu Shi's voice just dropped. The newly generated skeleton had an extra dagger that was exactly the same as the head of the skeleton, and his movements became obviously flexible. It is obvious that the newly transformed skeleton has been influenced by the skull leader. Combat Team, level 0, unnamed, feature. Health +1. Captain, 1/1, level 0 skull head, team member, 1/30th, level 0 skull. What life does a skull add? Gu Shi rose and quickly started to summon the dead bodies of the black-robed evil believers nearby, turning them into skeletons and adding them to the battle team that had just been organized. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. You will be assigned to a combat team with 1 team member. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. You will be assigned to a combat team with 1 team member. You have failed to use the soul summoning technique and have gained 1 point of soul summoning experience. In almost the blink of an eye, this newly formed combat team now has 9 skeletons. They are all holding a stick in their right hand and a dagger in their left hand. When they move forward, they always move in groups of 3 or 5, with almost identical movements, and it is impossible to see who is the leader or who is the team member. The people who just came out of the secret passage saw that Gu Shi had so many subordinates in just a blink of an eye, and they were still killing. They couldn't hold their feet, supporting the wall one by one, and didn't know what to do. Fortunately, Jack bravely stepped forward and cautiously approached Gu Shi. Before he could approach, Luna floated up to Jack, her empty eyes fixed on him. "Master, Dharma. Wait, this place will be cleaned up soon." At this point, Gu Shi had already reached the position where they had retreated last time. Gu Shi, who has a combat team, has full confidence in his heart. Even if he encounters the same attack as last time, he still has the confidence to win. After all, undead mages are the kind of exemplars who become stronger and stronger as they fight. "No, Master, we..." Jack wanted to say something more, but Gu Shi had already led the battle team back into the underground space in advance. As Gu Shi led his team to rush in, all the black-robed cultists standing near the abandoned gate turned their heads and stared at Gu Shi. Gu Shi understood that the black-robed cultists who had suffered losses once would no longer dare to let these cultists behave recklessly like last time, until they were hit and then began to fight back. Now they will react more sensitively, and if they feel something is wrong, they will turn their attention to it. Seeing a group of skeletons holding sticks and daggers appear, several black-robed cultists nearby took the initiative to pull out their weapons and rush towards them. "Kill!" Upon seeing this, Gu Shi had no intention of hiding anymore. He pointed at the enemy and the skull leader rushed out with the combat team. And Luna also appeared at the front of the combat team at this time. "Ah!" The female demon howled and paused as the black-robed cult disciples rushed towards her. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the agile skeletons quickly charged forward, stabbing daggers into the body of the black-robed cultist. Skull Head, summoned item, kills evil cultists, level 2, you gain 1 experience, summoned item gains 10 experience, and combined killing, contract undead gains 10 experience. Skull, summoned object, kills evil cultists, level 2, you gain 1 experience, summoned object gains 13 experience, and contract undead gains 9 experience due to combined killing. Gu Shi, who was following behind, kept drawing and summoning souls, supplementing the combat team's strength. Gu Shi found that such a battle was much more enjoyable than personally taking action. Although he can only gain 1 experience each time by using summoning items to kill enemies, the number of skeletons he cannot withstand is increasing. There are only a dozen or so skeletons now, so the speed of gaining experience will naturally slow down. But when Gu Shi had 3, 5, or even 10 combat teams in his hands, he could control more than 10,000 undead summoners. So his experience is not just about increasing by tens of thousands. It feels comfortable to think about it this way. With this thought in mind, Gu Shi's movements on her hands became faster and faster. The movements of soul pumping and summoning have almost become his instinct. Just as Gu Shi heard a clanging sound in his ear, he suddenly felt a tremendous force coming from behind him, and then a click came from behind him. In the next moment, Luna, who was fighting ahead, appeared behind Gu Shi, and the ice touch activated, striking towards the air somewhere. Under the touch of cold ice, a figure of ice blue appeared. At this moment, Gu Shi had already regained his senses. Without much thought, he grabbed the dagger and threw it back. This dagger happened to pierce the enemy's chest. This enemy doesn't have much armor on his body, he is wearing the simplest cloth clothes, and in order to maintain his lightness, he doesn't even have any leather armor prepared. When Gu Shi's dagger pierced his chest, he wanted to dodge for a moment, but when he was hit by the cold ice, his movements were noticeably slower. Even if he had the intention to dodge, he could not dodge this blow. Gu Shi did not let his guard down just because he hit the enemy. When the dagger hit the enemy, he quickly took a step forward and the curved knife in his hand struck the opponent's neck. Killing Royal Spy, level 2, earns 18 points of experience, while Contract Undead earns 11 points of experience due to cooperative killing. As the sound of the kill alert sounded, Gu Shi finally breathed a sigh of relief. But in the next moment, Gu Shi's heart lifted. Spy. Still royal. What is the situation? Gu Shi had not yet figured out what was going on, and the combat team fighting ahead also noticed something unusual here. They quickly retreated to Gu Shi's side, formed a circle, and protected him. Even Jack and the others were blocked in front of the defense line of the combat team. The black-robed cult disciples don't care what the reason is for you to retreat, what they see is the retreat of the skeleton. Seeing the enemy in front of them, the black-robed cultists gathered together again, like zombies attacking the city, rushing towards Gu Shi's direction. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Strong Upgrade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Strong Upgrade, Get Lost. Gu Shi, who was still annoyed by such incidents involving royal spies, became angry as he watched the black-robed cultists rushing towards him. He didn't care about anything else, just pointing to the few bodies of black cultists that hadn't been processed far away. Corpse explosion, and then corpse explosion. Boom boom boom. Under Gu Shi's secondary corpse explosion effect, many black-robed cultists who rushed over were blown away. Luna knew Gu Shi's thoughts the best, and when she saw Gu Shi act recklessly, she flew to the forefront of the battlefield and howled 3 waves of female demons who had not yet died while traveling to the black-robed cult. The power and range of corpse explosion and female monsters' howl are quite large. The black-robed cultist who rushed over was instantly killed or injured. A large amount of kill messages flashed past Gu Shi like a screen swipe. Killing evil cultists, level 2, earns 11 points of experience, and due to cooperative killing, Contract Undead earns 8 points of experience. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 9 experience points, and due to combined killing, Contracted Undead earns 19 experience points. Killing evil cultists, level 2, earns 13 points of experience, and due to cooperative killing, Contract Undead earns 10 points of experience. Ding, the total experience has reached the upgrade standard. Please choose whether to upgrade or not. Killing evil cultists, level 2, earns 15 points of experience, overflow seal 11 points, and due to cooperative killing, Contract Undead earns 10 points of experience. Killing elite cultists, level 2, earns 19 experience points, overflow seal 19 points, and due to cooperative killing, Contracted Undead gains 20 experience points. This situation caused Gu Shi's hands to pause for a moment. He didn't expect this wave to be so fat that he was about to upgrade directly. After upgrading, level up to level 2, replenish health and mana, clear all unfavorable states, increase intelligence by 1, and choose one of the following 3 skills as a reward. Dark Knowledge. A passive skill that can be upgraded. After mastering it, one can learn dark magic. As the level increases, the power of dark magic will also increase. Meditation Practice. A passive skill that can be upgraded. After mastering it, one can learn meditation techniques. As the level increases, the difficulty of meditation that can be learned will also increase. Undead Domination. A passive skill that can be upgraded. After mastering it, it can strengthen all undead mages who have contracted, summoned, and produced undead spirits. When summoning souls, there is a higher chance, 5%, to generate special undead spirits. Gu Shi glanced at the upgrade prompt, then at the remaining 400 mana points, and now he burst into laughter. Luna, move forward. Luna turned her head to look at Gu Shi and found that he was following the battle team forward, both moving forward and gathering mana. She knew that Gu Shi had made up her mind. So Luna didn't think much and pushed forward on the spot. As she advanced more than 10 meters, Luna opened her mouth and let out a mournful cry from the female demon, waking up the 400 to 500 black-robed cultists who were still standing in front of the abandoned gate. After shouting, Luna quickly turned back and approached Gu Shi. The battle team next to Gu Shi quickly stepped forward and faced the 400 to 500 black-robed cultists head-on. Before the contact between the two sides, Gu Shi, who was summoning souls, turned her spell and pointed to the corpse of the black-robed evil cultist that had not yet been summoned. Corpse explosion. Gu took a breath and used all his mana. This time is not just 2 or 3 secondary corpse explosions, but more than 80 secondary corpse explosions. At first, Gu Shi pointed at the corpses on the ground and made a move, but later he simply watched as the black-robed cultists who had been blown up into the sky made a direct move. Under repeated secondary corpse explosions, the entire underground space was awakened, and more black-robed cultists woke up from their standing positions and rushed towards the area where Gu Shi released the corpse explosion. Squeezing the last bit of magic, Gu Shi took a step back and reached out to grab the location where the series of explosions had just occurred. Under Gu Shi's movements, a large number of white light dots flew towards his hand. Soul pumping. After consuming all his mana, Gu Shi's face turned pale. Standing behind the white light spot he had guided, there was a strange aura emanating from his body. After the white light dots gathered together, Gu Shi did not synthesize these soul fragments into a complete soul like before. But when I turn my hand, the fragments of my soul automatically collide with each other. Subsequently, Gu Shi did not want these complete souls, nor any more corpses. With both hands pressing down, the complete souls fell like raindrops on the body that had just been bombed. Upgrade, choose Undead Domination, summon souls. Get up. As a golden light flashed over Gu Shi, his depleted mana quickly filled up, along with his life and state. Name. Gu Shi, Game ID 629SHD2S0FXC30 Occupation. Undead Mage Level. Level 2, 2356/5000, Talent. Unactivated Status. Health, 310/310, Hunger, Mana, 550/550, Attributes. Strength 3.2, Agility 3.3, Physical Fitness 3.1, Intelligence 5.5, Perception 3.7, Charm 3.6. Professional Skills. Soul Summoning Level 1, 36/100, Secondary Corpse Explosion Level 2, 17/200, Secondary Bone Shield Level 1, 3/100, Active Skill. Throw Level 2, 61/200, Passive Skills. Undead Knowledge Level 3, Undead Contract Level 1, Magic Knowledge Level 4, Basic Science Level 3, Basic Reading Level 2, Basic Copying Level 2, Undead Dominance Level 1. After taking a glance at the new level status, Gu Shi focused on the newly released soul summoning technique. As white light fell like raindrops onto the corpse, the body on the ground, which had already exploded for a round, exploded again. However, this explosion did not have as much power, it only left the body shrouded in blood and flesh. In the flying flesh and blood, one skeleton after another crawled up from the flesh and blood. At the same time, messages popped up one after another in front of Gu Shi. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0. The experience of the soul summoning technique is 1 point, and the control of the undead is automatically strengthened. You will be assigned to a combat team, with team members +1. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull, level 0. The experience of the soul summoning technique is 1 point, and the control of the undead is automatically strengthened. You will be assigned to a combat team, with team members +1. You have failed to use the soul summoning technique and have gained 1 point of soul summoning experience. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skull head, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. The undead dominance is automatically strengthened, generating a new combat team with a maximum of 35 members. You have successfully used the soul summoning technique and obtained a skeleton warrior, level 0, with 1 point of soul summoning experience. The control of the undead will be automatically strengthened, and you will be assigned to a new combat team with one team member. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Battle Squad, recommended. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.